Hey folks, this is Keough here with a new training video for you, and in this video you're going to see me do some squatting with my reverse bands. I'm going to do 405 for 5, then 405 for 4 sets of 6. The reverse bands are taking off a little bit at the top, but they kind of hang down to about the height of the bar, so my guess is around 20 pounds at the top. It's difficult to measure. And around 90 or so pounds at the bottom, because when I set up and I put 95 on the bar, it sits just a little bit lower than where I am at bottom position when I squat. So overall, these felt pretty good. I felt like first set was pretty easy, so I ended up actually adding an extra rep on the subsequent 4 sets. Weight didn't move tremendously fast, but that's because I'm still kind of dealing with some stiffness in my sacrum that is when it flares up over the course of my sets, when it's bothering me as I'm doing my sets, I just feel like I lose all explosion coming out of the hole. But what I really tried to do is I really tried to keep a bit more upright of a torso position. The reverse bands I like because in addition to giving me an overloaded effect, letting me do some supermax work, they also change the biomechanics of the lift for me slightly, and they allow me to keep a slightly more upright torso position. That's why I look a little bit more upright when I squat with reverse bands versus squatting with wraps. The reverse bands have a way of, because they're hung from the top, they have a way of stabilizing your bar path and keeping you in the groove, whereas bands hung from the bottom or attached from the bottom will disrupt that bar path and force you out of the groove and force you to really have to work to stabilize. So for me, what I can do is I can sit back into these reverse bands a little bit more and still be able to achieve balance on my squat, and to me that's just helpful because it takes a little bit of the workload off of my lower back, which over the course of the week gets pretty taxed. Sacrum is feeling pretty good. I'm managing it. I was dealing with a few sort of nagging injuries, but that's just a part of training for me now. Usually I have something bothering me. Right now it was my left adductor and my sacrum. Those are the two things that aren't feeling 100% when I go train and I do my lower body stuff, but they're both feeling better, which is encouraging progress. So sacrum is kind of off and on, and it's not an injury per se, it's just stiffness. It's just stiffness from overuse. So I've been doing a lot of rolling on my hip flexors, on my glute med, and I've discovered that that area is just insanely tight. So my guess is that I've got these smaller muscles that are insanely tight that are just pulling against my sacrum and pulling against my ilium, and I need to just try and gain relief by doing a lot of SMR. And so that's the protocol for right now. It's SMR and stretching every day, and so far it's feeling good in the SMR. It's translated a little bit from my mobility. I have noticed that when I take my feet out a little bit, when I did my squatting in Olympic shoes last week, that's probably about as good good a mobility as I've displayed on the squat in quite a long time. So I feel like it is making a positive difference already. I just need to continue working on it. So there's always something to work on. There's always something to be critical of and try and improve. I realized this a few weeks ago, and I've been running this base mesocycle and trying to fix a lot of things regarding my recovery, and it's going well so far. I'm getting stronger. Keep checking in, more videos soon.